We have some more RFA signings to discuss today. The Columbus Blue Jackets and Zach Werenski have agreed to a new contract, and another RFA may be signing in the KHL. We'll get into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. Now we do have some breaking news from the NHL. We do have some more movement in the RFA market, which has been largely here at a stalemate for quite some time. But with training camps being set to open here in just a matter of a few days, we have another domino that's fallen, and that's Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Zach Werenski. He and the Blue Jackets have come to terms on a 3-year contract, giving him an average annual value of $5 million. Now, we've heard some rumors in the past suggesting that Werenski likely did want a bridge contract, and really I think a lot of these guys that we've discussed previously and a little bit in yesterday's video as well, indicating that really a lot of these RFAs are looking to get to UFA status as soon as possible so they have more flexibility, and as the cap increases over the next few years, they have more opportunities to cash in and earn bigger paydays down the road. I mean, ultimately, that's what they want. They want a combination of more flexibility and as much money as possible, and really, who wouldn't want that with their job? This is their livelihood. This is what they earn for a living. Once their hockey careers is over, their earning power is certainly going to change quite drastically, and I completely understand the rationale behind it. Now, in this case, like I mentioned in the video earlier today and yesterday, talking about the Austin Matthews 5-year contract, marching him directly to UFA status, is kind of seemed to be a contract that many GMs around the league have not real pleased with, because that seems to be what a lot of players are looking for. So if they can't get that 5-year deal, in my opinion, that 3-year deal is probably the next best thing, unless they're willing to do a 4-year deal, which most teams are not going to want to do here either. Obviously, to become an unrestricted free agent, you need to have 7 years of NHL service or be age 27. A lot of these guys' cases, they will be even younger than 27 when they get their 7 years of service into the NHL, because many of them started directly after being drafted at age 18 or 19 or 20 at the latest in many cases. So either way here, a lot of these guys are going to be going directly to free agency. Now, to break down the Zach Werenski contract, there is a key detail here that I haven't really seen other YouTube channels or other media outlets really focusing on, but there is one key piece here that was likely what took so long to get the deal in place, and that's the breakdown of the contract. The average annual value of $5 million seems pretty reasonable for Zach Werenski, and many people are probably saying, well, why is this taking so long if this is what they've come to terms on? Ultimately, you'd think a deal like that could have been reached weeks ago, right? Well, probably that is true, except for the contract structure and the breakdown. Now, how this is going to work for Zach Werenski at the end of the 3 years, he will still be a restricted free agent. However, he will have arbitration rights. So obviously, he won't have a situation like this anymore. Either the player or the team can file for arbitration if they're having difficulty coming to terms on an extension on their own, and this won't happen. The only problem with arbitration is they quite often end up in 1-year contracts, but how his will break down here is in year 1, he's paid $4 million. In year 2, he's going to earn $4 million. But in year 3, which is the key piece here, he earns $7 million. So that $7 million payday in year 3 is going to be what's determined for his qualifying offer for his next contract, since he's still a restricted free agent. And when you're earning over $1 million, your qualifying offer has to be at least 100% of your previous salary. So he's guaranteeing himself to be offered at least $7 million on his next contract, which guarantees him basically a $2 million average annual raise over what he's going to be earning over the 3 years in this contract. So even though it doesn't get him directly to unrestricted free agency like a lot of these guys want, so they have that more earning power and more flexibility, it's probably the next best thing in my opinion. And I do think we're going to see probably a lot of these other RFA players that right now do not have contracts are likely going to be settling for similar type of deals. The key part there, like I said, is that 3rd year where they get the larger salary, which will their next qualifying offer will be based on. And if they end up taking a 1-year contract through arbitration, which could very well happen if they're having difficulty still negotiating and coming to terms, then ultimately they'll become an unrestricted free agent when they wanted to in the first place. So overall, I do think this is a pretty fair contract between the Columbus Blue Jackets and Zach Werenski. Like, the average annual value helps the team. I think the structure helps the player secure, a short-term contract for now, allows him to cash in again if he continues to play well, gets him a payday of $7 million plus in 3 years' time. And overall, I think it's a pretty solid contract. But like I said, that year 3 part was likely the sticking point in what stalled negotiations and caused them to take so long. So now that Werenski is signed, and of course we saw UFA Jake Gardiner sign, I do think guys like Brendan Carlo, Charlie McAvoy will likely, hopefully for their cases, not be too far behind. Other news of the day as well, it looks as though New Jersey Devils forward Pavel Zacha, who is also an RFA without a contract, appears as though may have already signed a contract and might be heading to the KHL. The reports were not quite clear if he just agreed to terms or if he's actually signed. Now there's a key piece and a key difference there, because if he's agreed to terms verbally but hasn't signed a contract, well, obviously there's still a chance he could turn around and re-sign with New Jersey, put pen to paper and be done with it. But if he's actually signed a contract, KHL contracts never have an NHL out clause, so that if he has an opportunity to return to the NHL, that he can go, which is why you see Russian drafted players who are playing in the KHL who have contracts there end up waiting usually 2 or 3 years before they come over to North America, because they have to wait for those contracts to expire. Those teams over there in that league are not willing usually to let their players out of those contracts to go play in a competing league like the NHL. So ultimately, he looks as though from the reports that he likely has signed a 1-year deal to play over there. So depending on how you look at it, that's either good news or bad news for New Jersey. I know Zacha hasn't exactly turned out to be the player that they expected him to be when he was drafted. They did use a very high selection to select him in the first round a few years back. But ultimately, there are some scouts out there that really saw him as probably being a bottom 6 forward, but others who thought he was going to be a higher end player. One other key piece to that, though, is that the New Jersey Devils did submit a qualifying offer to him. So even though he did not sign it, because that was tendered, they do retain his rights. And if he wants to return to the NHL and sign with anybody else, he will have to go through New Jersey first, either to sign with them or have his rights be traded. So I guess we will see what happens, but as of right now, looks like Pavel Zacha is heading to the KHL for the 1920 season. So that is all your latest news on NHL RFA signings. Hopefully we'll have some more of these discussed here soon, and start to have more of these dominoes fall to get these guys under contract so they don't miss any time in training camp and get ready for the NHL season that's coming up soon in a few weeks' time. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.